All right, click the links to join the channel here on YouTube or on Subscribestar or Patreon. So now it's over. Let's come out and say it. The Rings of Power was a stinker. I don't know if you're on the left or if you can admit that. And Seth Green alleges Bill Murray dropped him by his ankles as a child in a trash can. Seth Green probably deserves it. He's kind of annoyed now. He was probably really annoyed as a kid. So first of all, people watched the show, allegedly, Rings of Power. So you can't take that away from them. It got great numbers, got huge watch time, unless they're lying about the whole issue, which is entirely possible. I mean, keep in mind, you're dealing with just stupid amounts of money. People are willing to do anything to maintain a grift when it's, I mean, this is you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars. The show itself, after a few years, if it does well, it's going to cross over into $1 billion, I'm sure, assuming it makes money. So Rings of Power is sending mixed signals because it got a 38% on Rotten Tomato. And of course, it got a 69% on Internet Movie Database. But keep in mind, as I found out earlier, that Amazon owns Internet Movie Database. So, 38% on one site that's not owned by the company that made the thing, and then the company that owns it gives it double the score. Something's not adding up here. Oh, it's kind of like somebody's lying. Yeah, it does feel like somebody's lying because the show is not a 7 out of 10. There's no friggin' way, because it's not Lord of the Rings. It's something else. And you know what I'm saying? Like, if it's something else and you advertise it as Lord of the Rings, then it should get a 0 because it's not Lord of the Rings. It has a similar background setting and the characters look somewhat, but it doesn't have the spirit of Lord of the Rings. And you learn that in the first 15 minutes of the show with the evil elves sinking the boat. It's like, whoa, this is not the spirit of the earlier stories. This feels like SJW propaganda where you're going to grind an axe about men bad type of thing. It's like that was in the first, I think, 5 minutes of the show. And then you go back and watch the Peter Jacksons, like the first bit of their show. It's like, oh, this show is awesome. The first Fellowship of the Ring, the movie. Like, oh, this is just, I could watch this over again. Every 5 years, you could go back and watch the trilogy all over again. Perhaps not The Hobbit, but the original one for sure. Anyway, so yeah, Amazon 70%. Yeah, I don't know about that. Plus, they delayed the Amazon reviews, internal to Amazon, so they knew that they had a problem with it. I think the Amazon review is the exact same as Internet Movie Database. It's like they're not even trying to hide it. So they know they had a problem with the show. The thing is, they know when they were making the show that people were going to hate it, but think about this: they made it anyway. Because they're not a business. They're a globalist propaganda company. They just don't want to give you what you like, and more importantly, too, what you're willing to pay for, which would have been so easy to do. I'd be like, oh, hey, those Peter Jackson movies? Why don't you go back and watch those? Take careful note. Sit down with your casting director, and I say, hey, all the other things being equal, we want this show to look like this show. And maybe call up Peter Jackson and say, hey, can you come on and talk to us for about a week about the vibe of this show, read through it and see what we got. And none of that stuff happened. Allegedly that's because the Tolkien family estate wasn't as happy with Peter Jackson's presentation of the movies, which I'm a fan of the books too, and I read that. Read the book, saw the movies. I thought he did a pretty good job making the movies. I think the kid said it was too flashy, it was too much of an action adventure. It's like, dude, he did an amazing job with these movies. It's just like, yeah, it's not perfect, but translating a book to a movie is hard enough. I mean, you've seen all the failures with Stephen King. So anyway, but now you got to be aware. I mean, he had 2 good movies that came out of the entire Stephen King books. You got to be aware of what is going on. We're in the midst of this kind of soft Bolshevik revolution. It's like, it's so incompetent because you still have the Bill of Rights, you still have the First and Second Amendment. So it's why it's so painfully stupid to watch it. And you have a history of Bolshevism just failing over the past 150 years. And the history is still available to us. And they're like, no, we're going to try it again this time. This time we're going to use these very NGOs to try to control the narrative. Like, you learn about the Germans in World War II for the 10,000th time. Yeah, it's weird you guys never cover the Japanese or the Bolshevik atrocities in Russia or Ukraine, or the horrors of Cuba or Central America or Southeast Asia. It's weird how it's just one narrative. That's there goes the monetization. One narrative that's presented. Anyway, so they knew that the show was going to suck, and suck it does. I mean, it sucks. You can go see it for yourself. I don't have Amazon. I don't know what voice that was, but you can go on other sites and find it online gratis. So they made the show anyway, even though they knew it was going to suck, because the money does not matter to them at all, especially to Amazon, because Amazon, I don't know, what the market cap of that they are, but even a $700 million show. It's not going to lose all $700 million. It'll lose some money, but if let's go, oh hey, we lost $200 million on the show. People didn't meet the expectations in signing up for Amazon, the video part. Okay, well, $200 million, big deal. Move on. It's literally that's what it means to them. It's like you losing, $20 or something. They made this atrocity that is not Lord of the Rings, like at all. I mean, the sets. That looks like Lord of the Rings, but the spirit is not Lord of the Rings. And the costumes, like they did a lot of the stuff they did really well, but they didn't do the most important thing well. It's like the stuff that's come out recently. They talk about some city and they go, oh hey, crime. I don't know, Chicago or something. Who's that? Lightfoot or I don't know, Chicago or St. Louis or Detroit. They go, hey, crime is down after post 2020. In total, crime is down. You go, yeah, but what about the Malum and Say stuff? The stuff that's against the person, not the property stuff, but like the actual stuff against the person, the evil in and of itself crime. Oh, that's up by like 400%. Oh, we'll see. That's the most important thing, and it's weird that you led with a story that was somewhat disingenuous. Anyway, so they made this atrocity. It's not Lord of the Rings, but young kids presumably will see it on Amazon Video, or more likely on the streaming site, the other sites, and they will think it's Lord of the Ring. And to be fair, I don't even know how many people are going to watch this at all, unless you're, I don't know, hate watching or just such a fan of the books that you just want to immerse yourself in. I mean, to watch it with the sound off might be the best. So the globalists are making this stuff to program the next generation to accept essentially a digital genocide or a digital reimagining of culture. They did it to Star Wars, Disney Star Wars, Lord of the Ring, Wheel of Time, and I mean She-Hulk, and just all this, pretty much anything that came out in the past 7 years. I think you can probably think of a few other examples, and then the movies over the past, kind of started with the 2015, the Disney Star Wars, whatever that first one was called, horrible, and then 2016 Ghostbusters, and then they just Charlie's Angels, Terminator, X-Men, or call it the X-Women. And there was like a ton of these kind of movies that came out. You're like, hey, you guys are keep doing these feminist failure movies, and they're failing. And why are you, and like part of Birds of Prey, and part of it is that like you're doing it to yourself, where you go, oh, the show is not made for men. Okay. Why aren't men seeing my movies? And you think I'm kidding when I say that. It's like, all you have to do is be nice. All you have to do is go, you know what? We're making this movie for everyone. We're gonna open it up a little bit to try to get a bigger audience, but we're not gonna lose our core audience that got us here. The thing is, they can't do that. They just can't do that. I mean, they're in an echo chamber. They're so brainwashed. Like all these movies, they could have been better. Like even Ghostbusters 2016. I'm the one who comes out and I've heard other people say this too. I think Red Letter Media, when they did the review like 5 years ago about it, they said, if you just changed a few scenes to let the scenes breathe a little bit, it would have been a much better movie. It wouldn't have been a great movie, but it would have been a better movie. And they just rushed every scene. They just too much canned laughter, too much ad-libbing comments, instead of just making a comment and letting it sit and letting facial expressions tell the story like they did with the original movie. Which I've heard some people say that the original Ghostbusters was like a perfect comedy, and I look at it and I think, yeah, you're probably right about that. So what happens with all this stuff that they come out is they can't create, but they can buy the IP rights. And as people are talking about, it's like you look at Amazon, you look at this atrocity of a film, you go, oh, so you think about it, Amazon's they ship materials, or they handle distribution, and they might be like a video hosting site. That's something almost anyone can do, just facilitate the distribution of video digital content for sure. But you're talking about creating a whole series. That's something else. That requires a whole bunch of creative people. The thing is, they can just go. They have so much money. They can go out. I mean, it's like the ultra rich going out seemingly buying IP rights and just for the hell of it, and then they try to make a movie. It's like was it Manos, The Hands of Fate, where the guy like kind of made a movie on a dare, and he got this camera that can only record like a minute at a time or something. Everything had to be stitched together, and it's widely thought as like one of the worst movies ever made. If you've never seen Manos, The Hands of Fate, whew, um, even watching the Mystery Science Theater version of it is tough to get through. It's an aggressively bad movie. Anyway, so people they buy these IP rights to stuff and then they subvert it and corrupt it. And Tolkien was right; they really can only destroy. So what's going on with these media companies is such a large scale social engineering project, the scale of which is amazing to try to do this thing, this generational brainwashing. They replace Europeans from the stories that they created. You look and I know what it sounds like to say this kind of identitarian stuff, and I know I grind the axe. I'm very self-aware of this type of stuff, but the problem is I don't hear enough other people saying this. And if you told me a few years ago I would care about this, I just would not have cared about this a few years ago. But I look around and go, yeah, not enough people are saying this because they're making money on these YouTube channels. They don't want to do anything to get that money to dry up, and I get that, but I wish more people would like people will talk about the problems of these movies and they'll talk about everything but these core issues, and that's better than nothing. Like Gary at Neurotic, it actually does, I think, important stuff. You guys, it's pop culture. How's it important? Because it's a facet of the culture, and it's a facet of this crystal. And anyone who's bringing attention to why this stuff is bad, like, there's a culture war going on where Mundane Matt and his crew, or Matt Jarbra and his crew, will defend certain movies for identitarian ideological purposes, and we'll look at these movies and go like, yeah, these movies are crap. You're only defending it because it's pushing a left-wing globalist narrative. So it's like a proxy war going on. It's kind of Russian America through the Cold War years. If you live through those, if you live through the 80s, duck and cover, kids. Oh, okay. I mean, I guess if you're just the right distance away where the glass is blowing out and that's your only threat. But I mean, it depending on your location, circa 1986. Like, we're right under a target zone. You might as well just get out there and face the flash. Anyway, so you look at Disney Star Wars or Amazon Rings of Power. It's funny, you're an 80s kid, you still have the post-traumatic stress disorder from thinking that the world was going to end in nuclear annihilation. I'm not even kidding about that. So you look at Disney Star Wars or Amazon Rings of Power, and you see all these non-European characters, and you're given the impression that they're an integral part of the story. The viewer assumes that this is in alignment with the artist's original intent. They might not ever go to the source material, which is a real shame. That is the amazing power of these companies to subvert and corrupt the cultural history. They can, and like a lot of this stuff is pop culture, but Lord of the Rings has got a much, much deeper connection to something like as silly as Game of Thrones. Like, even the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, he knows it's silly. So they can erase and substitute an entire group of people, and not enough people are speaking out against it because it's not politically correct to want to stand up and defend the European people and their stories. They'll attack you and they'll accuse you of not wanting diversity, and everyone's istophobic and you're all wearing Hugo Boss kind of stuff. That's just a globalist control term to manipulate you into accepting erasing European people from a European story. No, we absolutely don't value diversity if it means destroying the story to get there. Because the simple solution is, oh, you guys should just write something fresh. Oh, yeah, what an easy way to cut through Gordian's knot right there. We should just write a new story. Hey, you want to put black people in stories? Yeah, you should get a black writer and write a story. Ah. Yeah, why didn't we think of that? Because it doesn't subvert and corrupt. Tell something fresh, The and the thing is, these puppet masters love to manipulate us into fighting against each other, so that we don't focus on the real string pullers, It's just they manipulate the chessboard to have the pawns fighting pawns, sacrificing pawns, fighting over on the battlefield that they choose instead of looking up the kings and queens and, more importantly, who's manipulating the boards. All we got to do is stand up, as Ice Cube said, if you catch that reference. So the characters already were diverse because the Englishman is diverse from the Irish, is diverse from whoever the Harfoot hobbits, which were Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, or the analog for those folks. Diversity is just code for removing the European from their own story. If you don't express how you feel about this, then they're going to control the narrative entirely. They say that the European is not important to the European myth-based story that the Englishman created, or the who's Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote The Little Mermaid, I think. So that is how much they hate you and have dehumanized you. They do not value European people or their stories. If you suggest removing Africans from an African story, they get offended because they feel that African has value to them. That's how deep the brainwashing goes. The media has pushed this anti-white narrative for about 50 years. Thankfully now, due to social media and alt social media, we have started to awaken people to what is going on, to this strange agenda they have. It didn't happen overnight. It's been going on since the 1960s with TV. And actually, before this, I was listening to a little bit of this show, a live stream on Odyssey and Shing TV and another site, where it was two people from opposing spectrums of ideological groups who were getting together. And like I always say, I go, the extreme left and extreme right, you get together and talk without the puppet masters controlling the speech. In this case, it was a black and white character who were on very much the far ends of the politically incorrect spectrum, and they were getting together for a live stream and just calmly and reasonably and politely speaking to each other about issues. And you go, oh, yeah, that should really be on YouTube. Yeah, it's not allowed on YouTube. The guy, HT, who did the interview, it's like he's not allowed on YouTube. And I don't think the black guys, I looked up his name, he's not allowed on YouTube either. Oh, that's a weird narrative where you have these alt extremists. They're both known as extremists, supreme people, and they're sitting down in this live stream politely speaking to each other about issues. And you go, oh, that doesn't really fit the narrative of, and like, do they both say offensive things and politically incorrect things? Yeah, I'm sure they do, but it doesn't fit the narrative of these pawns who were tired of being pawns, tired of being manipulated. It's like, oh, well, we can't show that. I remember back in the day, it's just off topic a little bit, where Sargon was doing he's still on YouTube, but barely. Like, YouTube is just itching for a reason to get rid of Sargon. And to his credit, he's been shifting to the right lately. It's really beautiful to see. But I mean, he was doing a live stream with a bunch of people who are no longer allowed on YouTube. And they were mostly just speaking to each other. It got a little heated, but those are important conversations, and we have this like open marketplace that's not so open, but we rely on it to our detriment because we don't shift to another marketplace of Shing TV or Odyssey or these other live streaming platforms, which is kind of where the magic happens. Anyway, so all this stuff is a serious issue, and it's all related. Yeah, eventually I'm gonna live stream. I need a new computer to computing. Live streaming computers need a little bit more power than the stuff I have now. So you have every group who's seen as valid and able to protect their interests and tell their stories, but for some reason the media has pushed hatred against people who look like you. What's more dehumanizing than to erase the people from the stories that they created? In the fictional Lord of the Rings, it's based on the European people and European mythology, obviously. When you're creating this cultural Bolshevism, what you're seeing with this stuff, it's actually evil. It's cultural erasure. European people are important and valid. It's not acceptable to disenfranchise and marginalize and oppress them any more than any other group. yes, you can use their silly cultural Marxist Frankfurt School Saul Alinsky language against them. The communist dialectic predicts that this praxis in existentialism, it's like, just speak normal, just stop with these word of the day things. It's all an argument from emotion, not evidence. They feel that these are the marginalized and oppressed. Well, we also feel we're marginalized and oppressed. It's all Frankfurt School manipulation. We can win this battle and dismantle their systems of power, but you have to at least start partaking on this endeavor. Rings of Power sucked. Why? Because it wasn't Lord of the Rings. It was propaganda. It wasn't even subtle either. Rings of Power doesn't make sense because Lord of the Rings is a nationalist tribal story. Rings of Power is a complete subversion to warp and to push globalist propaganda. It doesn't make sense in the story universe, but it also doesn't make sense in the real world. Globalism is cancer. It's absolute genocide. I don't want to say this next part. Not I. Yeah, they advocate for things that they don't. They say one thing and they shit. I just can't say the next part. Not if I'm going to get that. I don't know, $5 a video. It depends on the Lord of the Rings video. They always push for things, but then when you carry these things out to the logical conclusion, you realize that it's illogical. That the things that they're okay. I realize I'm fumbling a little bit here, but nobody gets the end of a video. So I mean, my point is, like with this specific series, you got the hobbits living together, but they're different. Obviously, you're using human actors to play hobbits, and you're using Euro and Afro. You go, so they live together, but they don't mix because I can tell like one's I don't know, Irish and the other one's clearly African. So why are they together if they don't look alike? They don't look like they're of the same tribe. That's kind of a weird family tree where the branches have never, you know, birds and the bees of people who live together, because after a few generations, they're all going to look alike. That's how that's how tribes. Why are they a tribe? Exactly. They don't look like they belong together, and people hear that and they get so triggered. I go, no, I'm saying you've got people who are like 5,000 miles away from each other, or 10,000 miles away from. How does that work? How did they get together? Oh, well, you're istophobic if you ask a very reasonable question. Yeah, let's just assume that you made all the ad hominems you wish to make. I'm not istophobic. I don't think many people are. But explain how the show works. You got like a Euro and an Afro Hobbit, but they're together, but they don't have sex, but they're still together. How does that work? Explain to me how that works. It's a good question. Yeah, that's why I asked it. I didn't think anyone was going to ask such a politically incorrect, offensive question. Yeah, political incorrectness doesn't mean anything. Offensive, you're not offended by this. I'm not offended by this. I'm asking you like how they live together, but they don't have sex. I don't see how that's offensive. Why are they together? They're clearly not related. Like, you'd have to go back to that family tree several million years to find the common ancestor. There's a willing suspension of disbelief. Like with Shakespeare, you go, oh, you'd be so triggered by black actors in Shakespeare? No, absolutely not. Play the roles all you want, because it's more like an homage or respect for Shakespeare, that you like the Shakespearean work so much that you're willing to learn and study. It's like, oh, by all means, have a black King Lear if you want, because he's not actually black. He's just an actor playing the role. And it's more like a respect thing for everyone involved. Like, you went to the effort to learn your craft, like to become a Shakespearean actor. It's respect both all ways around. Like, yeah, all means, like, of course, anyone around the world can carry out Shakespeare plays if they wanted to. Why wouldn't they? Like, we don't believe in cultural appropriation. That's not how cultures work. They share. You can do any play you want around the world. This is different because here this isn't just an actor playing a role. You're trying to say the characters together are Euro and Afro hobbits living together, or elves too, or even in Game of Thrones they're doing the same thing. It's like, so they live together but they don't have sex. My brain just keeps spinning in circles. Like, am I supposed to think they're all one tribe? Because there's several scenes of the Afro Hobbit saying stuff like, she's repeating this mantra about, like, we don't go in the forest and we all stick together. You're like, okay, so you stick together but you don't get drunk and screw? because something's not adding up here. Like what would happen is if you had incorporated someone new into your tribe, you would just start mating with each other, and then it would be incorporated into the tribe, and within 5 generations there wouldn't be any more. The diversity would be gone because you interbred them within the tribe, and the tribe would just have a slight more tan, with that branch they interbred. It's like that's logic, and you're not istophobic for saying, oh yeah, that's how people work. They have sex and they have little hobbit babies. Oh well, these people don't, but they live together, so they like each other enough to live together, but they don't like each other enough to have sex. Something's not adding up there, I'm not getting an answer. It's like, yeah, well, I don't think you're going to get an answer from the Rings of Power people. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Subscribestar, Odyssey, Bit Chute, Gab TV, Locals, Telegram, Shing TV. Man, it's just like there's got to be a common front end upload engine where you just make one fudging video and you upload it to this thing, and then it does it for you automatically. Oh, I should post on World Truth Video. I should post on some guys from these other sites send me some emails. Go, hey, why don't you on the site? Get on the site. I'm like, how? Like, you can take the videos and put them on there if you want, as long as you put the the Subscribestar thing on there. But like, there's oh yeah, we've got like Sovereign and like a dozen sites for video hosting. Yeah, you just upload one video to one site and it does it automatically. It just follows the YouTube format. It's like, why? Oh, I think somebody said you can pay someone to do that. It's like, yeah, but if you've got a channel like this, you can't. There's no money to pay anyone. I can pay somebody $1 if they want to do it. I mean, there's more channels like this, under 10,000 where there's just no money in it. But we're still making videos because we enjoy making videos. But you want to spread it around to get people to all these other sites. Now I am rambling. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Subscribestar, Patreon, or join this YouTube channel. YouTube is the channel memberships have helped a lot. So thank you to the amphibian who recently joined, and I'll see you guys next episode.